IGA Swiatek. Wait, correction. Aryna Sabalenka has spent the last 2 weeks defending a Nike outfit that many of her own fans have called one of the worst tennis dresses of the year. The controversial look features an orange top with a black mesh-style overlay, and the criticism became so intense that some fans were publicly asking Wilson to sign her instead. Then, within the same 48-hour period, Nike quietly shifted attention toward a different athlete in its 2026 US Open campaign, not the world number one, and not the reigning Indian Wells and Miami champion, but 21-year-old Alex Eala, currently ranked number 20 in the world. The contrast has fueled even more discussion, especially since Sabalenka's recent press comments seem to suggest she's noticed what fans and social media algorithms noticed first. Eala, meanwhile, has been a Nike athlete since 2019. That's not a 7-month marketing experiment. It's a 7-year relationship Nike has been quietly building since she was just 14 years old. Sabalenka, by comparison, reportedly waited more than 600 days after becoming the WTA's world number one before Nike gave her a custom kit, a delay reportedly still being discussed in boardrooms as late as May of last year. That difference tells a much bigger story about how Nike has positioned the two athletes. Then, on August 6th, that gap became impossible to ignore when Nike unveiled the 2026 Nike Court Slam dress in Old Royal Blue, featuring basketball-inspired black and white mesh detailing, priced at $140 on Nike.com. The face prominently associated with the release was Eala. The dress arrived only days after Sabalenka's own US Open kit went on sale, creating an immediate and sharp contrast online. Yahoo Sports covered the backlash surrounding Sabalenka's 2026 US Open outfit, and fans quickly piled on. One post summed up the frustration bluntly: Nike has lost its creative direction. Another fan tagged Wilson directly, pleading with the company to rescue Sabalenka. According to reports, Sabalenka also appeared to encourage her fan base to voice their complaints to Nike on her behalf, creating the unusual situation of a reigning world number one seemingly turning her own supporters against her sponsor. At the same time, a 21-year-old athlete from the same Nike roster was quietly modeling one of the brand's biggest Grand Slam releases. It's easy to understand why Sabalenka would be frustrated. She earned the ranking, won the titles, and kept showing up on the biggest stages. But this is where sympathy meets marketing data, and the numbers tell a different story. Sabalenka herself reportedly told the press she wished Nike would give her the same kind of creative treatment, adding that the upcoming season wasn't shaping up to be anything particularly special for her either. Coming from the reigning world number one, those comments reveal just how aware she is of the attention Nike is giving other players. When the biggest star openly admits another athlete has the treatment she wants, the marketing story becomes hard to ignore. Instead of softening the campaign in response, Nike appeared to double down. Eala was featured across Nike's channels wearing the old royal blue dress, and just days later she teased a second look, a mint green kit, on her own Instagram. 2 coordinated looks, 1 athlete, and comparatively little spotlight for the world number one. Here's where the story gets even more interesting. A discussion on Reddit's r/tennis reportedly pointed out a detail that mainstream coverage had largely missed. The dress Nike gave Eala wasn't a fully custom design. It was the Nike Court Slam dress, a broader release that other sponsored players are also expected to wear at Flushing Meadows. In other words, Nike didn't just give Eala a dress. The company chose her image and visibility to help market that product to a global audience. That's a marketing decision, not a courtesy, and for Sabalenka, that distinction could make the situation even more frustrating. Nike could have created a fully custom kit for Eala, but instead used a widely available product and still chose the 21-year-old Filipina, ranked number 20 in the world, as one of its faces. Nike had an entire roster of elite athletes to choose from this time. They chose Eala. Fans who've been saying for the past 2 years that Eala's marketing power was growing faster than her ranking may have been reading the situation correctly, and Nike's recent campaign appears to reinforce that. But the bigger story is what Nike has been quietly building underneath all of this. At Wimbledon 2025, Eala walked onto center court wearing a Sampaguita-inspired hair tie referencing the Philippine national flower, an accessory reportedly designed specifically for her as a heritage tribute. While Sabalenka has been publicly seeking more customized treatment, Eala has already been receiving personalized touches tied to her national identity, suggesting a very different level of relationship between athlete and brand. The pattern becomes clearer when you consider the wider reaction. Yahoo Sports covered the backlash to Sabalenka's kit, while other outlets and TikTok creators compared the two Nike releases side by side. The contrast was stark. Eala's outfit was widely praised while Sabalenka's was heavily criticized. Two Nike releases landed in the same general window, yet the public reaction couldn't have been more different. The rankings may say one thing, but the market appears to be saying something else entirely. If this were just Reddit and TikTok enthusiasm, it could be dismissed as online noise. But the attention around Eala has reached much further. In March of this year, Forbes published a feature by contributor Marissa Lawrence Corbett titled, "Why Alexandra Eala Could Be Tennis's Next Global Trailblazer." A publication like Forbes doesn't typically describe a player ranked in the 20s as a potential global trailblazer without seeing a larger commercial and cultural opportunity. The timing is hard to ignore. Months before Nike placed Eala at the center of its 2026 US Open marketing push, Forbes was already highlighting her potential as a major global figure in tennis, suggesting two different institutions were spotting the same opportunity from completely different directions. Then there's Tony Nadal, the Hall of Fame coach and uncle of 22-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal. His connection to Eala through the Rafa Nadal Academy adds another layer. When he publicly congratulated her on Instagram after her Washington title, the tone was that of someone recognizing a player who had already arrived, not simply encouraging a developing prospect. Forbes made the market case, Tony Nadal reinforced the tennis case, and Nike's latest campaign appears to have connected the two. This isn't simply about a tennis dress. It could represent a real shift in how Nike allocates its tennis marketing power. For decades, the swoosh largely followed the rankings, building its biggest campaigns around the sport's most dominant stars, from Serena Williams and Maria Sharapova to Naomi Osaka. The world number one was usually the safest choice to headline a Grand Slam campaign. But Nike's latest strategy appears to challenge that model by putting a 21-year-old Filipina, ranked number 20, at the center of its 2026 US Open campaign, while world number one Aryna Sabalenka receives comparatively less attention. Nike may be signaling that global market reach is becoming just as important as ranking position. Southeast Asia has historically been an underdeveloped market for tennis brands, but Eala brings something different, a massive, highly engaged Filipino fan base. Her social media posts generate significant engagement, and her matches have increasingly attracted attention beyond traditional tennis audiences. If Nike's marketing data is pointing toward that audience, Eala could become one of the brand's most valuable emerging stars. The next major test comes on August 24th at Flushing Meadows. Both Eala and Sabalenka will arrive at the US Open wearing Nike, but the marketing stories surrounding them couldn't be more different. One represents established dominance at the top of the rankings. The other represents a rapidly growing global audience and commercial potential. Once the tournament begins at Arthur Ashe Stadium, fans will provide the real-time test of which strategy Nike has judged correctly. After the US Open comes the Asian swing, including the China Open in Beijing and the Wuhan Open, where Eala will compete in the very region Nike appears to be targeting with its international strategy. That's why this story goes far beyond a single week or a single outfit for Filipino tennis fans who've spent decades watching the sport without seeing someone from their country positioned prominently in global tennis marketing. This moment feels significant. This isn't just a courtesy appearance or a promotional invitation. Eala is being placed at the front of a major campaign. But Eala isn't unbeatable, and she's had setbacks along the way. On August 15th in Cincinnati, she lost to world number 10 Amanda Anisimova in the third round, ending her 5-match winning streak against top-level opposition. It was a genuine defeat that temporarily slowed her momentum heading into New York. Yet Eala didn't respond with a long explanation or public defense. Only days later, she quietly appeared in a Nike-produced US Open reveal video wearing the court slam dress. She simply kept doing the job she was brought into the campaign to do. That contrast may be the most revealing part of the entire story. Eala's response to the setback came not through words, but through visibility. Within days of the loss, Nike was still putting her at the center of its US Open promotion. In a sense, the brand itself was answering the question of whether it believed in her long-term potential. One line about wishing Nike would let her do the same. A hair tie inspired by the Philippine national flower on center court. A Nike court slam dress worn by a 21-year-old Filipina whose image was chosen to help sell that product to a global audience. Taken together, these moments suggest Nike may not simply be overlooking Aryna Sabalenka, it may be changing the metric it uses to decide who leads its biggest tennis campaigns. Instead of relying primarily on ranking, the brand appears to be placing greater weight on audience reach, cultural impact, and global market potential. By that measure, Alex Eala is becoming impossible to ignore. For 2 years, Filipino fans have been loudly supporting her rise, and now that enthusiasm is translating into international attention. Sabalenka may hold the #1 ranking, but Eala's commercial momentum and fan engagement are creating a very different kind of value. So here's the question worth debating. If you were Nike's chief marketing officer heading into Flushing Meadows, who would you put at the center of the campaign? The world #1 who has publicly expressed frustration with Nike's creative treatment, or the 21-year-old whose rapidly growing fan base is turning her into one of tennis's most marketable young stars? Make your case, and if you want to follow this story as it develops through the US Open, Beijing, and Wuhan, stay tuned, because if Nike really is changing the rules of tennis marketing, the people who recognize the shift early will be able to say they saw it